Hello, everyone, and thank you for choosing This Week in Guns, brought to you by PatriotPatch Company, VZGrips, MAF Corporation, and FFLPayments. This show offers commentary on the latest firearms industry news, information, and buzz. I'm your host, Matthew LaRosiere, and I'm joined by my usual rat friend. It's Ivan.
It's me. I'm coming to you live from the hit video game Red Dead Redemption 2 on the best map, Badlands.
You are holding down the spawn.
I'm here to get some 360 no scopes.
Is that your Winchester 1890?
Yeah, I've been doing funny stuff to it. I've almost got it running very reliably now, and I put a red dot on it as a joke because I found out the reason that it was not super accurate since I relinered it was the rear sight just drifts with thumb pressure. So I was like, how could I fix this? I could like paint the dovetail over, but then there's also the funny route of printing a little optics mount that goes on the dovetail and then grabs it because the barrel's octagonal. It can then like bear up against the flats on the barrel. It actually works pretty well. So it's staying like that for now.
That's great. That's so good. I love it.
Over 100 years old. Now it's got a real sight on it.
Yeah. No, that is fantastic. So we do have a couple, personal updates.
Yeah.
So I got good news and I got bad news. Which one do you want first?
Let's do the good news first.
The good news is I finally became eligible for Twitter blue check mark welfare.
Awesome. He's going to retire soon.
Yeah. The bad news is it's because somebody tried to SWAT me. So here's the quick version of the backstory. A while ago, I posted the VHS review that we did together. And in the VHS review, there was a point where we were shooting into the bullet trap and the gun malfunctioned. And as the gun malfunctioned and went click, right, on a dead, empty chamber, I really quickly stopped to look at something. And when I did that, my brain didn't immediately, give my trigger finger rigor mortis and shoot it off to the side of the...
right, because the hammer's down and it's not going to recock itself. It'd be interesting to have a double action restrike capable rifle, but just because the VHS's trigger is bad doesn't mean it's that bad.
It doesn't mean it's double action, but it might feel double action, but it's not. But yeah, and I got a bunch of comments saying how incredibly disappointed in me
because that's so unsafe. That gun could have gone off any time.
Yeah, it like we said, there is a gun fairy that makes that happen somehow, and of course, there is a reason for the 4 rules, especially for people who are not used to guns, and I think I like the way you said it.
It's like with black boxes, right? Mm-hmm. And then in computer science, they call it like encapsulation, I think, where in an ideal world, the user wouldn't have to know actually on the inside how something works. It's just that you can just assume like when you push this button, a bullet goes out. Right. And that's all that somebody at the most basic level needs to know about it. And so the 4 rules are based around, it's the same thing that you teach children with ovens, right? Is you don't tell a child, you look at the display to learn if the oven's hot. You don't tell them, if you think about if the oven's been running in the past 4 hours to think about if the oven's hot. You tell the child the oven's always hot. Do not touch anything on the oven. It's always hot and will burn you. The same way we teach a child, the trigger is always hot. Never touch the trigger or it will hurt you.
Like I recently did. Remember the young Master Braden. There was a good reason we told the young Master Braden that the gun was always firing at all times.
Yes. Or like with swimming pools in children, right? You don't tell them, oh, make sure you know how to swim first. Like make sure you know how the gun works first. It's like put on floaties before you get in the pool because you just assume they don't know how to swim.
And so so there's a great place for that, right? And especially, and we're not saying you're a child if you have to rely on the 4 rules, but
you could also be a Marine.
If you are a person where holding a gun still feels odd, and that is normal when you're new to them, then it's fine.
I mean, jokes aside, it's normal, and if that's where you're at a skill or familiarity level, there's no problem with that. That's how it. I mean, that's how it should be. You should want to stick to that for as long as you possibly can, because you're relatively insulated in your understanding.
Yes. No. And that's all great. However, it is fundamentally unhelpful for people to like scan the internet, auditing every use of a firearm for a picosecond where one of these, Cooper's 4 rules are violated.
And the funny thing is like, Jeff Cooper popularized these rules. Of course, he didn't write them. He had a buddy that wrote them. Like everything with Mr. Jeff Cooper, he sort of stole it, and then gets attributed with having created, the scout rifle and the Bren 10 and everything else. Right. He did it himself. But with the 4 rules, he popularized them. But then there's pictures of him like blatantly violating the 4 rules, like finger on trigger, pointing a gun straight into a camera, violating 4 rules. Like that's like the turbo FUD heart attack. Like, oh my God, they're going to get me with that. But he in his classes, he talked about how, and of course, this is one thing that I'll say, I think he was dead right on, that the 4 rules are there so that if you need to break one, because there will come a time you have to break one. The 4 rules are there so that when you break one, what you're doing has an elevated chance of risk associated with it. So like holstering a handgun, he specifically said, you're going to break one of the 4 rules. It has to happen. Right. So while you're doing that, think, I'm going to avoid breaking any of the other rules, and I'm going to like mitigate. So I'm going to lean away from the gun while I'm reholstering it, mitigate the chances that something bad happens. So of course the 4 rules are there as guidelines. They should be taken as like strict laws, like gospel for people who don't know what they're doing. But by the time you understand what the rules are, and then why the rules are, why the rules are worded and shaped the way they are, as well as you've come to understand how a gun works, you can break those rules. And in fact, every gunsmith ever breaks them just as a course of habit. They're always looking down barrels. They're always pointing guns in weird, unsafe directions. They're always dry firing triggers, and they're not pointing, like some people say, like they have the one corner where they stack up phone books that they dry fire at, even when they're using snap caps. And like there's probably a million gunsmiths that like started with that. Mm-hmm. Like I always had the one corner of the house I pointed the gun at to dry fire. Now I pointed anything. Like, oh look, there's a cat. Maybe not quite that extreme, but you get the picture where it's like you eventually come to a level of like well, like a gunsmith will have loaded. Because a gunsmith has taken apart so many guns and observed so many actions, he will have a foolproof ritual to check that the gun is safe, right? And he'll go through it, including like Othias and I both will kind of put our finger into the chamber just because we've seen some weird shit. Right. Because like there's stuff like the Madsen where you can take the mag out, you can jack the round out of the chamber. There's still a round that's in like the side feed tray slot. Yeah. So there's some guns that have stupid stuff that goes on. Or like the gun I'm holding here, the 1890, right? Yeah. You can dump the rounds out of the tube, and if you cycle it again, it will still put it. They're still around on the elevator. Yeah. But the point is that the gunsmith will, or the firearm practitioner will have a process, but then once they've gone through that process, it's as if the rules didn't exist. They're going to be pointing it at everything. The gun's dead as a doornail. Who cares? Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, all that to say, these YouTube commenters just really pissed me off because it was like, one, like, bro, you're here on my channel, like where me and Ivan are taking these guns apart to like tell you what we see. And you're like just whining at me like it's the first time I've held a gun. And that just made me super annoyed. So I made a tweet with the still image of it, and Twitter users did the same thing. Must be like this knee-jerk reaction where it's like, "Oh my God, you can never do." And of course, these people aren't thinking about like some guns you have to pull the trigger to clean them. In any gun, right? Any gun. Oh, bro, hold on. Let's not get there yet because there was a. Oh my God. So I started posting, and you started posting too. We started trigger confidence posting. And I would like to interject here to point out the difference. So there's some people who like you're doing the point thing still in current year where like you intentionally load a gun and then point it at yourself and fiddle with the trigger as to not shoot yourself and sometimes shoot yourself. That's a complete that's like it's like completely different to the point of being the exact opposite where like taking a gun and purposely unloading it and then touching the trigger is the complete opposite thing of taking a gun that you then purposely load and then point at yourself and then shoot yourself. It's a very different sort of thing.
So anyway, with all of these completely dead as doornail guns, and my favorite one was this one where I said I'm at a gun shop and I had the gun on 3 fingers. People, 1.1 million interactions. And here I said, "Good morning. I'm buying a gun. I'm doing my gun paperwork." And I had all these fingers in the pen in the trigger guard, and people kept getting mad. So I was like, "Okay, I'll get worse." So I kept getting worse, and they kept feeding me more. And then finally, a guy posts whatever his name, Goodman something. He's like, "You're a tax lawyer. You're supposed to be defending our Second Amendment rights, and you don't even realize states have laws against this, yours included." And I'm like,
what are you talking about?
yeah, what the hell are you talking about? And then he's just like, he starts saying like, "You're about to find out. You're about to find out just how little of the law I know." The dude called the cops on me. and he called the cops on me over this post where and again, this is part of my shtick. I said, "My uncle is dead and now I have this gun. Is it a good gun for self-defense?" What do you receive from that message?
I have inherited this gun. What's this gun?
Yeah. And and for you audio listeners, it's a Smith & Wesson 52, which is like a preposterously rare, ridiculous.
It's an auto-loading 38 special.
Yeah, 38
it's
special.
very
That
different.
can only use wad cutters, and like is specifically notorious that it can only be used at exactly 25 yards. So it's a completely bizarre, hyper rare gun. And so he calls the cops and says, "There's a man on the internet. This is his name. This is his address," because he went and looked me up. "He is telling people to hurt themselves, and he has a gun." And so of course they have to it's a big area. They have to do something.
They have to do a wellness check.
Yeah. So the cops already know me, but he's like, he tried to swap me, and he's literally saying, "You're about to find out. You're about to find out." He lied to the cops.
Admitted to lying to them.
Yeah. And then the cops showed up because they knew me, and were basically like, "Hey, are you okay?" I'm like, "Are you okay?" It turned into like this weird exchange, and they were saying like, "Yeah, were you telling people to hurt yourself? Were you thinking about doing any self-harm?" And I was like, "Bro, I had breakfast this morning. I look forward to having breakfast tomorrow morning and every other morning. Like, no, somebody wanted to swap me and they're harassing me." And I was like, "And I'm going to file the Sunshine Act request to confirm it was them, and then I'm going to sue them." So yeah, that's what went on. And it's really screwed up when people try to use the state, and especially of the violent enforcement arm of the state, as a way to exert like,
"I'm right on the internet."
Yeah. And so everyone on Twitter got very angry at this man.
Yeah, and it turns out that this man has his wife left him, and he's had to refinance his house 3 times since then, but he is very sure he can afford a lawsuit halfway across the country. Those in glass houses shouldn't poop on the bull's china shop is how that saying goes, I think.
Yeah, it's also like he acknowledged. Anyway, I'm suing him. That's simply, 1, it's illegal here, there, and everywhere. 2, cause damages. And 3, it just fuck you. Like it's wrong. It's like there's no universe where that's okay. And the funniest thing, like, there's clearly something wrong with this guy, because after everyone's like, "What's wrong with you? Like, you're a felon." He's like, he starts changing his story. He's like, "No, like,
he said he killed his uncle."
Yeah, 1 second he's like, "We know there's no dead uncle, and you're just a clown." And the second is, "What was I supposed to do? You said you killed your uncle."
You need to pick one and then keep it straight.
Yeah.
And hopefully consistent with what you told the cops, because otherwise you've done an uh-oh.
Yeah, he's a dumbass. I look forward to whatever is coming. But anyway, next up, in terms of good news from the state of Florida. Oh wait, before we do that, as part of all this, I have a little tiny announcement that I also posted on Twitter, and it was in one of my things. We have an exciting thing coming. This little guy, the new design. I'm really excited about it. Keep an eye on, I guess, whatever.
It's going to elicit more people doing the, no, you can't do that. No, that breaks the rules.
Yeah, a lot of people will think that what we're doing breaks the rules, but it does not. It is 100% not rule breaky. And I also like this picture because it's a picture of me with the new gun, my new design, my South Bend lathe, my Corvair, and my Honda CBX. And somebody just like listed all that stuff in the comments and said, "Nice autism, bro." And for some reason, I
enjoyed that flavor.
Yes, for some reason, I was like, "Thank you." That made me feel good.
I guess one other thing I do want to add on the whole trigger confidence thing is I know there's like a lot of people that see them and they're like they just assume it's a joke, and then the joke keeps going on and they're like, well, what's the point? And then, my response, I've been formulating it, but I think it goes something like, well, there doesn't have to be a point, right? You can just post something and just because you can do whatever you want. So I think it at least started like that, mixed with it was just sort of a haha funny joke. But I think at the end, there's like an overarching message of a lot of people who are, it's like the 10-80-10 thing where like 10% of people are very pro-gun and they always will be, and 10% of people are anti-gun. And then there's a bunch of people who are in the middle. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of people who are in the middle but leaning anti-gun are just that way because guns are, guns are black boxes, but not in good ways to them, right? As they're pretty sure that guns can just go off on their own or load themselves or do horrible, dangerous things. Because you see it in the movies, right? The gun gets dropped and it fires, or the gun that's just sitting there, or the house is on fire and the gun starts shooting, or like a million different things where they don't really understand how guns work. Mm-hmm. And so they just mystify them to the point of guns are dangerous, like guns on their own are dangerous items. And so I think that there's maybe some sort of it doesn't have to be as big as like a legal policy thing, but at least from a standpoint of enhancing people's understandings of guns is we're not saying disregard the 4 rules or that they're unimportant or that you should ignore them, only that fostering an understanding of guns that's more rich than the 4 rules, I think would be good, where you get to a point of, it doesn't have to be a very deep understanding, but one of guns are simple mechanical objects. They aren't mystical arcane things. It's not like a wizard's wand where if you pick it up and point it at somebody wrong, they'll die, or like a wizard's staff and you pick it up and you're casting lightning bolts. It's much simpler than that. They're simple mechanical machines. For the same reason, like whenever you sit in a car and the car is off and you push on the accelerator, like nobody's saying not to do that, right? Because you understand the car has to be started first, much like the gun has to be loaded. And so I think having that wholer understanding of guns would be a good thing. And I think one easy way to at least start that conversation is post a picture of an unloaded gun with your finger on the trigger and be like, this shouldn't be something that gives you immense amounts of heartburn to the point where you're swatting people over it.
I'm so glad that you said that because I couldn't agree more. There is something that it's kind of evolved into, or you might even say devolved. But what I do want is like you're saying, some type of nuanced change. And it does all revolve around us getting at those people in the middle. And one thing I've noticed is the most important event in like a person's life in terms of whether they're a pro-gun person or anti-gun person is their first time actually experiencing firearms. And I've seen it time and time again where if you have somebody, if they like go to a range and like rent a gun and use the Rangeoid instructor and they get screamed at for, like,
like, this is the most dangerous thing you've ever done. And statistically speaking, like driving your car there was like, like magnitudes of more dangerous. Right. But like and they're getting screamed at the whole time. They're not going at the same time that there's loud noises and it's just a horrible experience. Those people
are now pushed to the anti-gun side because they're
Right.
like, why? What kind of sane person would want to be in this headspace? What type
As well as like, they feel like they're doing something innocuous, and if all they get is screamed at about how unsafe it is,
Yeah.
the only thing a rational person would conclude is it's impossible to be safe with guns.
Yeah.
It's
And so
impossible,
I
no
don't
matter
want
how
anything
hard
to
you
do with
try.
Like
Right.
at best, they're going to say, I want nothing to do with this. At worst, they'll say no one should want anything to do with this.
Right.
And there's this guy, Badger Hound on Twitter, who I've like wanted to kiss him when he posted this, because people were like whining and whinging, right? And he said, this is mostly satirical backlash against folks whose knowledge of firearms and firearm safety is about as deep as a puddle and attempt to roast others about minor infractions. As satire and art, I wholeheartedly approve. It should show reality in its extreme form as a path towards defining and advocating for the moderate position. It's also less extreme than previous incarnations like the "we point guns at our balls" movement that existed for a while and still does. And he points out rightly, as a firearms instructor, I will tell you to keep your fingers off the trigger a million times until you remember, but it's very unlikely that I'd unironically choose to go on someone's internet post and comment about it. It's inappropriate outside an instruction environment, and when you push on people, they tend to push back, and rightly so. I thought that was such a just like good and nuanced.
That's the sort of thing that I would like to continue to foster. And if what it takes to cause those sorts of discussions is I take pictures of 8-inch barrel set me's with my toes on the trigger, I'll do it. I'll post feet for that.
Yeah. Oh, and also, this was great. This was one more aside on this. I know we've gone on for this for too long, but hey, you guys are on the internet. You can advance.
Yeah, you can skip time.
Yeah, you can time travel. It's so crazy. I was so proud of this picture. and you see, like, if you know anything about AI and guns and whatever, you'd know that there is no chance in hell that this is an AI generated image. Like,
yep,
all the details on this gun, everything, but look at all the fingers in the trigger guard. Of course, if you are perceptive, you'll see a plaid sleeve here, right? That's hidden under the stock.
Mr. President, there's been a second hand.
Yeah. To a bunch of like Twitter insectoids put a community note saying that this was an AI generated image. I could not believe that. Like a bunch of pay pig Wikipedia dwelling dweebs, like, one, know what AI is, and two, could think that this is an AI generated image. Like, you have to be so profoundly unimaginative.
Yeah.
To come to, like, when you see that picture, your first conclusion be, this is fake.
That one also ginned up another very interesting conversation, but I guess we can save that for another time.
Oh yeah, that was wild. And I like my I will just say my response to that was Reddit dwelling Snopes checking Wikipedia reverting cave dwelling note writing fact checking insectoid homunculi, stay the fuck away from me. I hate those people. But you know what I don't hate? Florida business, Florida
deals.
VZGrips.com, and a good deal. That's the best thing that you could ever ask for. Oh, what do we have right here? What do we have right here? Did you know that this is a real Colt 1911? Might say Rock Island Armory, but it doesn't matter. This is a real one, so we need to get the best grip possible for it. Where can we find such a grip like that? I would probably be right here, VZGrips.com. It's available for sale. 1911. You're going to get the palm swell, and you're going to get $69.
Nice.
Yeah, you can get the VZ Slant Palm Swell full-size grips in Hyena Brown. That's what you're going to get. You're welcome. It's all said and done. Oh, one more thing. Use promotional code THISWEEK15. That's THISWEEK15, and you're going to get 15% off of these fine Hyena Brown grips of whatever model you choose, courtesy of me. And you actually don't have to choose Hyena Brown, but you... I mean, you'd be stupid not to. So check him out. Thanks, VZ Grips, for being a nice guy and for personally endorsing Trigger Confidence posting.
Indeed.
All right. Next up, this is a story that hits close to our hearts. Some of you guys might be aware of a outfit called Gunbusters. What?
No relation to the fuddbusters.
No relation.
Different busters.
They bust.
I think they're Scottish or something.
Well, they are in the business of taking guns from cops, from like buybacks or whatever, and crunching them up. They get them, munch them up. And the deal is they take the crime guns or even the police trade-ins or whatever guns from the law enforcement, and they will destroy them
For free.
as long as they can resell the parts that are not firearms. Now, they do offer the law enforcement agencies the option to pay for destroying the guns, the whole guns, right? Every single part. But why would they do that?
Right. And it seemed like, you know, from this article, about 2% of people opt for that. And some of them are required to, such as the Secret Service.
Yeah. Yeah. But so the New York Times has finally found out that there are some people who take these parts and rebirth them.
What?
Into new guns. Can you believe that people would do that?
Bad boys. I'm not me though.
No, we don't do that.
Different guy. No.
Different guys, not us.
No.
Yeah, no. But yeah, guns were said to be destroyed. Instead, they were reborn. Communities across the U.S. are fueling a secondary arms market by giving seized and surrendered guns to disposal services that destroy one part and sell the rest. And
liberals understand how their gun controls law works.
Yeah.
Shocked to find out.
So yeah, these are the kits. They sell everything but the receiver.
Yeah.
So I guess they must just be trying to outrage firm, because
I think so. So like I know for a fact they've been aware of this for a while, but they're trying to make it like, oh, we just found this out. And I think this is maybe on the heels of like public reception of buybacks is like in the gutter right now, especially with those stories of people making like 20 grand off of just like printing auto steers and turning them in and being like, I don't know, found these. And so,
and then when they got rid of that, Turkey comes to save the day.
Right. So I think like this is them trying to like save the image of buybacks, where it's like, oh, the bad guys were just making it so they wouldn't work. The evil NRA came and did this to us. And so I think that's at least part of what they're trying to do here, as well as, you know, they're trying to score their points on ghost guns while they can. I think Biden's ghost gun rule is like ultimately doomed to fail at this point. Right. I think the writing's on the wall as far as that's concerned. But they're still trying to like cling to some gun control victory so they can get Biden another 4 years. I think that they should be investing in like adrenochrome research or something.
Yeah.
But the guns too.
Yeah, no, it's important.
And they got like quotes from everybody, and then as well as like the owner of Gunbusters talked to the journalists, which is a big mistake. Don't talk to journalists for any reason. In fact, here's my advice, right? Because journalists have wanted to talk to me. Here's a trick you can take from me, and you don't have to pay me royalties or nothing. Tell the journalists that you work really weird hours, but you'd be able to take a call at 4:30 in the morning. And then don't be awake at 4:30 in the morning, be sleeping. Have the journalists stay up till 4:30 in the morning for you not to be awake at all. Have them call an email saying, hey, you up? And you ignore them.
That's so good. I remember that. This is good. This is good. I love this. Of course, the New York Times article is like total word cell bullshit. Right? It goes on and on and on, but there's some good nuggets in here. Federal regulators approved Gunbusters pulverizer, because Gunbuster, that's their big thing, is the firearms pulverizer. It's just a miniature car crusher is all it is.
Right,
but anyway,
it's a metal shredder.
Yeah. As a acceptable destruction method. A January 2018 letter from ATF to a lawyer for Gunbusters indicated that the agency was also aware that the company removed firearms parts and components for commercial sale. This practice is not explained on the Gunbusters website and is rarely mentioned in news stories, though the company's contracts contain language saying it will sell salvaged parts and scrap metals. When asked during an interview whether Gunbusters typically puts the whole gun through the pulverizer, Mr. Reed, the president, initially paused before answering. Yes, the firearm gets put in there.
Yum, yum, yum.
Yeah. So asked to clarify if he was referring to the receiver or frame, Mr. Reed acknowledged that he was, then explained that selling the rest of the weapon was how his company made money. Can you believe that he would want to make money?
Can you believe companies make money? How dare they?
And then they mention that a nearly complete Colt AR-15 without the receiver threw 30 bids before selling for $2,175 in October. No background check required.
We know an interesting thing about this this AR-15.
Yes, we do. And so I don't have the picture here, but it was, they called it a Colt
Canada.
Yep.
AR-15. Except it was actually a Hesse Vulcan build.
Yeah, well, so hold on. They called it a Colt Canada AR-15 LMG, and it was like, it had the bread bin M16 LMG handguard, and it was like, holy crap.
And it looked close, and it had a flat top upper, but if they're saying it's a Colt Canada, that means it's like one that's not supposed to be here, so it should be pretty desirable. Like it's one of the Danish contract guns. That would be the only flat top LMG uppers that, assembled uppers that would be here.
So flat top Colt LMGs did exist. They were made in Canada, and they never would have made it here.
They wouldn't have made it here unless it was like something funny happened.
Right, unless a big hilarious occurred.
One fell off a truck.
And then, and again, Gunbuster listed it as Colt Canada, right? So you bought it.
Yes, because I was like, okay, cool. Yeah. I always wanted one. I got it at a decent price for what it was claiming to be.
So, and it was, by the way, you did not buy it for $2,175.
No, I paid less than that for that.
Yeah, you got it for like $1,700,
something like that.
And we were so excited when you got this. I remember we were vibrating.
Yes.
And then it showed up, and it was
it was an M16 feed ramp barrel and an M4 feed ramp receiver. That's the first thing I noticed, and I'm like, huh.
Yeah.
I guess maybe in Canada they're just drunk on the maple syrup or something, but that's not right. And then the bipod I ended up noticing was wrong. I took the handguards off, and the heat shields were held in with hot glue.
Yeah, it was an airsoft handguard.
And then I noticed that it was supposed to have a thicker profile gas tube that's just dead straight, and it has just a regular gas tube. And I noticed the gas block is wrong, and I'm like, everything here is wrong. And
then we found out that Messy Hesse,
good old Messy Hesse,
had made a LMG upper.
I think it was in 2018, made a run of quote unquote LMG uppers, where it was just an awful conglomeration of
airsoft
AR
parts and dog shit. Yeah,
right. So it's an airsoft bipod and airsoft handguards on a regular.
And he sold these for $700 when they were new.
I think it was $600-700 for a complete upper with a bolt carrier group back then.
And so then fast forward to now, you get this thing and you're like, hey, this is not what you said it was.
I said, hell no.
Yeah, take it back. So you sent it back, told them it was not that. They relisted it
as the same exact thing.
As the same thing, sold it for more, and now it's being highlighted in on the New York Times. And the best part is they sold it again before they even gave you money back.
That's true. They drug their feet for a really long time, and I had to threaten them with the chargeback before I ended up actually getting my money back.
Yeah, which was really angered me, and so it's almost like a little bit of a of a comeuppance. But anyway, so this is just stupid. I think what they're trying to do is basically they're trying to make the cops aware of it, so the cops get all fussy with them.
Right, because and this puts Gunbusters in a tough spot, because they're going to get most of the because buybacks tend to happen in the states that are anti-gun. Just sort of how that shakes out, because that's right. Where they make the funding available for it more readily, and it's going to there's going to be more crime guns of the sort of guns that you want to generally be selling parts for from the anti-gun states. Like states that ban ARs will have more AR parts in circulation just by nature of when one shows up, they're taking it.
Right.
So Gunbusters now is going to have to walk the tightrope of the police in these states have now been put on notice that they're probably not supposed to be doing this, and I wouldn't be surprised if some of the more proactive, completely blue dominated legislatures try and pass laws where it's like, it's part of whatever omnibus they do. They throw in a footnote that's like, any guns that we have to be crushed up good and proper, the whole gun.
Yeah. And so, what's going to wind up happening then? They're going to warehouse the guns.
Right, because they'll probably end up having to warehouse the guns because there's like a limited number of outfits that would be willing to do that for non-insane amounts of money.
Right.
And so the cops are just going to go, okay, we're not.
Because it's infuriating. Like,
right, they don't have that in the budget otherwise.
You have to log it into the book. You have to document the destruction and then log it out as destroyed. And the audit trail on that sucks. So it's like, it's really not an easy thing. And that's why these cops have been getting it's a great deal for them because it's just like you drop them off and you don't worry about it.
Yep.
So I think they're going to be shooting themselves in the foot because if these, anti-gun states do throw a fit about it and try to change this, it's either going to be, okay, well, pay up, which they're not going to want to do, or I guess you have to build the landfill just for your crime guns.
Don't let us know where it is, though. We would like to avoid it to make sure we can avoid it. Let us know exactly where it is. What hours the guards change, and is the fence electrified, or the dogs? Just the regular stuff.
Yeah, just we're not.
I'm scared of dogs. That's why.
Yeah, I'm scared. Yeah, we don't like that. Anyway, next up, the Federal Board of Appeals has blocked some of the New York gun laws. What's going on here?
So if you guys remember New York's Concealed Carry Improvement Act, which was, it was like the first Bruin response bill, and it was the one, it was rushed through like immediately afterwards.
Yeah, I remember seeing her face all with her little turkey gobblers all flabbing. She was so upset.
And it was probably the least well written of all the Concealed Carry Improvement Acts, where they just like, I think the official analysis was it was actually harder to be able to carry a gun in public after it than it was before, which is impressive. Good work, New York. But initially they had an injunction, and then it was reversed, and then so it's been too long of a legal drama to recap.
This one's about the private property held open to the general public rule.
Right. So the panel of 3 judges, and I think all 3 of them were like not favorable to our side.
Right.
And so we weren't really expecting anything out of this. We were expecting the only way this gets fixed up proper is through the Supreme Court, and that's probably still the case. But in a sort of unexpected curveball, this panel of judges who were hostile to our arguments from the get-go threw out the vampire rule, which is by default carry is banned everywhere unless somebody says it's okay, which is just like it essentially bans carry everywhere no matter what all the time. Yeah,
everywhere except like places that have like a big sign that say bring your gun.
Right.
Yeah.
And so that section got through out, and they upheld most of the rest of it, which is unfortunate. And I think what I've seen and or heard is that the plaintiffs are the plaintiffs are going to appeal it. Although it was interesting because there was some of the pro-gun side that was saying, "Look, we won," because of course the vampire rule is probably the most evil evil of the facets here.
Yeah.
But then the anti-gun side was also saying, "Look, we won," because they a couple aspects get upheld, like bans and
they didn't take everything. We won.
Right. They got their bans in areas that like might be sensitive areas. And I think that's pretty much the lines that the panel of judge painted along was, all parks are sensitive areas where like, the Bruin probably specifically forbids you from doing that, but okay.
Yeah.
Like maybe you could say all parks that border schools, maybe, but otherwise it's probably just like the list of federally prohibited areas where schools, which the area surrounding schools probably shouldn't be, because that was only done to stop drug dealing. But like schools, inside of schools themselves, and nuclear plants and courthouses and stuff is probably the only one that's going to be upholdable, because there's a history and tradition of the government providing you with protection there.
Yeah, that is an interesting part. This is going to take a while, right? Because this is actually a legally interesting question. That it's going to take quite a few cases to figure out the edges and corners of it. I do think that the Maryland one is the Montgomery County case is probably the most interesting. You guys definitely need to keep your eyes on that one, because it's been going not too bad. But yeah, so this is just one, another chapter in the long book on Bruin response bills and what the limits are going to be on public carry. And the interesting thing here is that this only really, all of this stuff matters most in the hyper anti-gun states that would rather you not be able to carry at all. So we're learning now what's going to be the floor of firearm carry in this country, and that's pretty dang exciting. I'm pretty happy about that. What about you? Are you happy?
I'm happy. I mean, I'm excited. The fact that they're willing to, I don't even think it was throwing a bone, right? I think it's that they really sat there and looked at it like, if we uphold the vampire rule, the Supreme Court will fucking flatten us. And so they're like, yeah, no, the vampire rule can't stay because it's a de facto ban on carry in public. They can't do that. Yeah. That said, I don't think that they were completely trying to avoid getting flattened by the Supreme Court because. I think they're bargaining. They're like, can we maybe maybe just this be okay? And so we'll have to see with the appeals. The Supreme Court, and I have to assume they would expect this. They're not dumb. It's going to be just like completely inundated with like post-Bruin gun law. And at least I think the silver lining, the sort of promising thing so far is that in the wake of Heller, it took longer than this for gun cases to get back up to them, and they did not want to hear any of them. Yeah. Meanwhile, in the wake of Bruin, they're taking gun cases like they're going out of style. It's actually kind of interesting,
and it's probably because they, frankly, the lower courts have insulted them.
The lower courts have insulted them, both after Bruin and after Heller, and then I think the court's makeup after Heller probably wasn't strategically sound enough to be like, now's the moment we do this. Yeah. Not that I think it's a ton better now, but it's at least a little better now.
We still have that cop.
Which one? If it's not the cops, it's the cop lovers. But
yeah, hate them. Anyway, next up, what's good?
Huh? Guns.
Yeah, guns, and companies that are good for gun companies, and that's FFL Payment Solutions, guys. It's FFLPaymentProcessing.com. If you know a gun shop or if you know any firearms related business, chances are they're getting screwed on their credit card processing fees. FFL Payment Solutions is great. It's run by FFLs for FFLs. Check them out. Tell your friends to check them out. If you know a gun shop, you could increase their profitability by referring them to FFLPaymentProcessing.com. It's absolutely free. Get your rates and just see what they can do for you. You have nothing to lose and money to gain. FFLPaymentProcessing.com. And if you tell them we sent you, you get a special reward.
It might even be a good one.
I don't know what it is. Next up, this is an interesting one. The ACLU has a new client.
Yeah.
The National Rifle Association.
Oh my gosh. This one has caused more belly aching on Twitter than I thought was imaginable. Where there's been countless versions of, wow, ACLU. I've supported you guys. I've supported you guys for a long time. I supported you while you stood up for the neo-Nazis. I supported you whenever you stood up for the KKK, but I draw the line at the NRA. Racism and white supremacy, I can support.
Yeah.
Guns? No. And this, of course, all being parroted by people who are ostensibly progressive liberals, which is fascinating. So the story here is that we talked about this story previously, the case that's heart of the story previously, where the Supreme Court has agreed to hear a case where the NRA had its carry insurance program got struck down in New York. But then the prosecutor who won that victory against the NRA started bullying other companies affiliated with the NRA, saying, you want to drop these guys because we just spanked them in court, right? You guys want to drop these guys or else we'll fuck you guys up too. And then the NRA was like, hey, you can't go after our business partners like that because that's you're threatening them, right? You're blackmailing them. And that's exactly what they did. And I'm sure the ACLU sees that this is pretty close to an open and shut case. And so they want to have their name attached to like a great big First Amendment win. And I'm sure the NRA doesn't mind having the ACLU in your corner in a case that's before the Supreme Court is generally a really good sign. Because the Supreme Court knows who the ACLU is. I think they might have went to school together or something. But it probably bodes well for the NRA's end of this lawsuit. That said, like we talked about last time, this is not a Second Amendment lawsuit at all.
Yeah.
Which is, and the ACLU even said so on Twitter like 5 times, that we disagree with the NRA position on guns. And they even said that they think the NRA is wrong on the Second Amendment. And I sat there thinking, like, what's the NRA say about the Second Amendment that you think is wrong? Like, they think it's an individual right? And then it reminds you of that joke, right?
What did the NRA say about the Second Amendment?
I imagine that it's like it's an individual right and people owning guns
and hunting.
And apparently the ACLU thinks that's wrong. And I think it gets you back to that joke where it's like, how does the ACLU count to 10? 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2. No, I haven't heard of that one. What's that one like? If anything, it'd be a militia of the state's rights.
Well, and they're only co-counsel mind, right? So it's
right.
The ACLU does not support the NRA or its mission. We signed on as co-counsel because public officials shouldn't be allowed to abuse the powers of the office to blacklist an organization just because they oppose an organization's political views.
So it's cool and principled of them. However, the NRA's probably got this one no matter what. And so, you know, the NRA can use the help. Having the ACLU in your corner sort of guarantees, right? It's like having a completely stacked loadout, like you're running your 6-man in search and destroy, and you know you're not going to lose.
Yeah.
So they're sort of stacking the deck in their favor. And as far as the ACLU is concerned, they're going to have their name on another First Amendment win, and so they can be like, "Wow, look, we stand up for all the bad guys, including the NRA." It doesn't matter if it's the KKK or the NRA. We love our bad guys, don't we, folks?
Yeah. All right. Well, speaking of bad guys, these. So have you, you guys out there in the audience? I'm not sure how many of you have heard of this in the investor group that's a bunch of nuns. They like to buy into companies just so that they can bring shareholder derivative lawsuits. And it's like the most infuriating thing because you're violating the spirit of just everything. You'll buy into this company, try to get on its board and stuff
with the intent of suing them.
Yeah, with the intent of just fucking up the business, and like, which violates every fiduciary duty that you would have as a, like, because they try to fill the boards up,
right?
But anyway, yeah. So the nuns who own shares of Smith & Wesson have sued over AR-15 deaths.
The problem is for those who aren't as like legally savvy, the lawsuits that you bring in this is something along the lines of they're not acting in the best interest of their shareholders, as in like the company is making strategic moves that aren't going to make the shareholders more money. Right. So they're trying to say that the company should stop making the product that makes it the most money. Yeah, because currently that's not in the shareholders' interest. Yeah, so they're doing this in the most like, and so you do have the right to do that, right? When you own shares of the company, and you're like, for example, Papa John's. This was a big issue with Papa John's when they got rid of the Papa for a time. There was a big threat of shareholders being like, "Hey, you can't like." Just because you want to be woke, or whatever. Just because he said the N-word a couple of times. Yeah. Which, whatever. But anyway, like that was a thing. Walmart, when they decided to quit selling ammo, that was a thing. It's a concern, right? Is what you're doing in the best interest of the shareholders? And now it's not always just money. All right. Right. Because there are reputational concerns, and then legal liability concerns. It's anything strategic. Right. And so what these nuns are doing is they buy up a part of the company, and they bought it so they could sue, mind. Yes. But the lawsuit is, hey, you are marketing your AR-15s to young men. And that they will then do the notable, and that means if you
we lose money. So you should stop.
And the problem with that argument is there's like New York is full of judges who will be like, yeah, that's a good argument. The whole state full of judges that think that way, and it's called New York.
Yeah. This is, though, filed in Clark County, Nevada.
Yeah, good luck with that, buddy. I guess it's not impossible, but I wish them luck, and I hope all parties have.
Well, and here, what I love about this is one of the aversions in the lawsuit is that Smith & Wesson has enjoyed with abandon the record-breaking profits from its sale of AR-15 rifles, seemingly unfazed by the exponential raise in gun deaths and mass shootings carried out with its product.
Exponential, like it's 2 instead of 1, or
yeah, which is not, you can't have an exponent yet. Also, like, record-breaking profits enjoyed with abandon.
There's a judge in New York who would be like, that's the best sentence I've ever seen.
Yeah, he'd be like, oh my god, finally some good food. But yeah, Mark Smith, who is also Wesson, his opinion is this frivolous lawsuit is simply another instance in their long history of attempting to hijack and abuse the shareholder advocacy process to harm our reputation and company. I frankly think you're doing a way better job harming your reputation with that stupid folding gun. But but hey,
what do I know?
I'm just a stupid idiot. But speaking of stupid idiot garbage nonsense, it's MAF Corporation. Wow, look at that. What a good website on the internet. We got a new code for you. It's FUDbusters. If you use code FUDbusters, you get a record-breaking discount. Wow. Set me L chime. 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 It's important to get this. It's important to get this. It's important to get some other products. Go through the website. There's stuff. It's available. Oh, also, there's 545 AKM kits.
Huh?
545. That's
545 tastes good when you shoot it.
It's got that salt taste. Yeah. Anyway, guys, check it out. Use code FUDbusters. That's a big discount. Big discount. All right, next up, guys. Listen, this is a big news, okay? This is big. Republicans have crushed the assault weapons ban.
Get crushed, idiot.
Yeah, they did it. Thanks to our back the blue, Marco Rubio, John Brasso, Senate Majority Leader. They stopped it. They stopped it. Look at them doing it. Look at them. God, it's so
this happens actually every year.
Yeah,
we're at the like literally every year. So at the end of the year at the Senate, before they all go home for a big long Christmas break that we pay for, they do this thing where like their bills that they want to get passed that definitely won't have enough time left at this point. They try to pass them by unanimous consent, which is essentially you say, "Hey, I want to pass this." If no one objects, it passes automatically. And so there was just like the laundry list of anti-gun bills, as well as there was one to there's currently a blockade on military promotions or whatever, which is okay. That kind of sounds cool to me, right. But I don't think we need 50 more 4-star generals. But what do I know? So that was like the initial thing they started with, but then like as these things go every year, they it seems like they're completely like off topic, where they're like recognize the next person to speak, and normally they'd be speaking about something associated, and they just start on a completely different tangent, and then at the end they're like, "That's why we should pass my bill by unanimous consent," and then somebody immediately objects to it. Yeah. But they tried to pass they wanted a federal version of Ethan's law, which is like the safe storage, like you can't have a gun and ammo unless it's locked up. And they have to be locked up separate.
Exist.
Right. If a kid contemplates existence, then you can't have a gun. They wanted to pass like an assault, I guess it was Feinstein's assault weapons ban from previous this year.
And then there was background checks.
And I think that was essentially the 94 assault weapons ban, but one feature instead of two.
So basically, they just tried, and Republicans saved the day.
Of course, nothing happened because any one person can object.
Yeah.
And like, wow, the Republicans, they shut down these bans good and hard because like literally just one guy has to stand up and say something completely unrelated, which is what they did. They could stand up and talking about something else, or they like 3 or 4 of them wanted to pass universal background checks. Because did you guys know Fox News said 90% of gun owners support background checks? They're not sharing their stats on that or how they actually asked that question, but that means that 90% of gun owners want universal background checks. What it means.
So we should pass it by unanimous consent.
If 90% of Americans agree on something, why can't Congress agree by unanimous consent?
Why can't Congress?
And then, of course, you have the guys who stand up and say, that means I can't give a gun to my buddy on a hunting trip.
Dude, we want a huntsman together.
Which, like, you kind of could, unless they reworded the law and made it worse. The draft of it that I had read was you probably could. It's like if you let your buddy have a gun and then he goes hunting with it once a year and he just hangs on to it, then maybe it would be a problem. But I guess if he goes hunting in your absence or what have you. But the like funny thing about this at the end was there was an actual notable Las Vegas that happened. Like hours after after all this stuff got shut down. Right. And so, of course, the knee-jerk reaction from the senators who was trying to get their stuff passed by unanimous consent, which was never going to happen, was all like, "Oh my gosh, House Republicans shut down these life-saving measures," and then immediately somebody got shot, and like they're trying to insist that if these had passed, this shooting wouldn't have happened. Like, okay. And of course, it came out that the shooter used what looked to me like a Taurus, like one of the Taurus M9 knockoffs.
Sorry.
And he was so he used a handgun in 9mm, and he was targeting specific people, and he had recently got evicted, and he was a professor that had previously taught at the university, so he got like laid off and evicted, and was having financial hardship, and so he decided to do something pretty fucking lame about it. But then it happened at the University of Las Vegas, and then again, certainly not a great thing that happened. But none of the proposed legislation would have had anything to do with stopping him, it was just like so typical of American gun debate politics, where nothing happens as far as no movement in the needle of the politics going on. And then a notable Las Vegas happens, and then they're all like, if we had just passed my thing that had nothing to do with this.
If we had a safe storage law, the notable Las Vegas would not have happened.
Surely would have stopped it.
Yeah. Anyway, it's stupid. But you know what's not stupid? It's PatriotPatch, our longest sponsor. And look, it's Crimbus time. Look, I got the little Crimbus patch. He knows. It's a Santa Claus, and he's equipped. He's fully equipped. He has a gun and an axe and ground panoramic night vision goggles. Guys, if you go to patriotpatch.co, they're a cool company. The patches are really high quality, made of PVC, and they're chewy and good. You can use promotional code TWIG10, TWIG10, get 10% off any order. But I do recommend the Patch of the Month Club, because you're just going to get a little endorphin rush every month. It's going to happen. And Patch of the Month Club members get the Patch of the Month as a high-quality PVC patch with hook and loop backing, a vinyl sticker version, as well as limited edition artist series concept print of that patch thing. You can't buy that stuff normal. You can't just buy it regular. So you go on there, and they also got a Clarence section. These are all items that Clarence himself personally picked out. So check them out. So yeah, that's it. That's all. I am excited though, because Ivan and I are going to be filming some more FUD blasters very soon.
That's true. That's going to be a fun, exciting time. Fun sighting, I think, is what they call it.
Yeah, it's a fun sightement. And in other news, I will be getting married in a couple weeks.
He's gonna get locked down the old ball and chain, the old ball and chain, and she's never gonna let him out. But yeah, Ivan's gonna come to the wedding, and then we're gonna review a bunch of guns. It's gonna be fun.
Funny. Yeah, it's gonna be funny. Anyway, guys, thanks for coming. Have a good night, okay?
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll take care.